Hello, and welcome to this Research Concepts tutorial, How to Read a Peer-Reviewed Scholarly Research Article from the Harold L. Drimmer Library at Westchester Community College. In this video, we will discuss the structure of a typical peer-reviewed article in the social sciences and explain which sections of the article are important to look at for most assignments at WCC and what kinds of information you will find there. In another video discussing the peer review process, we explain that peer-reviewed articles are written by experts and scholars for other experts in the field. The authors expect their readers to have a foundation in the subject and therefore will not go into detail explaining concepts or methodology. The vocabulary can be quite technical and dense, with sections that are difficult to understand. For most assignments at WCC, you are not expected to read and comprehend everything in a scholarly article, though you should always check your assignment or with your professor to clarify what is required. Most research in the social sciences is empirical research, meaning the authors have written up the results of a study that they themselves have conducted. These articles typically have a set structure with clearly labeled sections, although sometimes the titles can vary. These sections are the abstract, followed by an introduction, which usually contains a literature review. Next comes the methodology, the results, and discussion, which is sometimes titled conclusion. We will examine each of these sections in turn and discuss what information they contain. Here is the title page for Minority Stress and LGBTQ College Students' Depression, Roles of Peer Group and Involvement, which is available through the database APA Psych Articles. The article is linked below if you'd like to take a closer look at it. Use your WCC credentials to log in and access it. The journal title is on the top right with additional citation information below. This article is from 2019, so it's fairly recent. The author names are below the title, along with their university affiliation. Next is the abstract, which is a brief summary of the article. When doing research using the library databases, we first browse the article titles and then read the abstract to decide if an article seems like it's related to our topic. When reading the title, we should be able to get a general idea of what the article is about. If an article title seems overly technical, it's probably a good idea to pass over it, as the article itself will probably be difficult to understand. The abstract is a summary of the article. You can think of it like the movie trailer for the article. You get the main characters, here LGBTQ college students, and the main plot points, such as depression and peer involvement. Although, just like actual movie trailers, you'll sometimes find the article isn't really what you expected once you read it. After reading the abstract, we should have an idea if the article seems relevant to our topic. There may be some specialized vocabulary that we are not 100% clear on. For example, what internalized heterosexism means. We may need to look up some terms in our textbook or a subject dictionary, but we should have a general understanding of what the study is about and who it involves. Also note the use of we in the abstract. This is another good way to confirm that this is an original research article. The authors write, "We examined," "we considered," "our findings." This shows that the authors of the article are the ones who conducted the research. The introduction is the first section of the article. It sometimes includes a subsection titled Literature Review. It gives an overview of previous research on the topic and how it relates to the published study, covering the major concepts and ideas. You'll see that it's filled with citations to other articles, showing that the authors are not the first to investigate this topic. Once the authors have established what is already known, they will state what they are setting out to find in their study. This will usually begin with something like the present study or the current study. Sometimes this is a new section with a header, but it's usually the very end of the introduction. Our authors write, "We hypothesize that." Here's what this study is going to try to prove. Once the researchers have established what is already known about the topic in the introduction and what they are trying to prove, they will explain how they are going to prove it in the methodology section. They will go into detail about how they set up their study and information about the participants. They will explain who is in the study and who is not, and why they are not. How many people are in the study? Where and how did they find them? Depending on the study focus, it may be important to know something about their ages, ethnicity, gender or sexual identities, socioeconomic status, or other variables. Will it matter if our study didn't include students at community colleges or only included private universities? Did it compare full-time versus part-time students? What if the study was conducted outside the United States? You might want to think about how these differences might matter. The methodology section will also define measures and procedures. How was the study set up? Was it an interview or observation? Were the participants part of an experiment? Was this a one-time occurrence, or did it happen over an extended period? If the study is looking at depression, how will they define this? In this study, the researchers applied the patient health questionnaire and decided anyone with a high score was depressed. A different study may use another criterion for depression, which could mean our sample populations are not the same. We will need to think about how meaningful this is, especially if the studies don't seem to agree with each other. It's enough to identify that this study used the patient health questionnaire and that this is how these researchers evaluated participants for depression. It is not necessary to know everything about all the measures and procedures, just understand how they are being applied and for what reason. The results explains how the data was collected and analyzed. Depending on the study, this section contains tables, statistics, and other graphics. In general, we can skip this section, although there may be information that could be useful. At most, we may need to identify how the data was analyzed. For example, here the researchers used hierarchical multiple regression analysis. Being able to explain the intricacies of regression analysis, why this method was chosen, and how to apply it is not something required for most assignments. The results is the most technical section of the article, but don't worry about not understanding most of it, or any of it. The final section of the article is the discussion, sometimes titled conclusion. This is where the authors interpret their results and tell us what they've discovered. Did they prove what they set out to find out? Were they surprised by the results? What was significant? How can their findings be used? If they had to do the study over, would they do anything different? How does this study expand our knowledge on the topic? Did it lead to new questions for further research? The discussion is the section you should concentrate most on. It will explain what happened in the study, why it's important, and how it furthers knowledge in the field. It will also discuss practical applications of the researchers' findings. While peer-reviewed scholarly articles can seem very technical and complicated at first, by concentrating on specific sections and knowing what pieces of information to look for, it can be less daunting to read them. They give you a good look into how research is conducted and what questions scholars are trying to answer. A suggested reading order when looking at a scholarly article is, first, the abstract, to decide if the article is interesting and understandable. The methodology, to ensure that the subject population and topic are what you are interested in. Next, the discussion, to see if the study is relevant to your own research. Then, the introduction, to fill in the background research about the topic. And maybe the results. This section can sometimes have useful stats, data, or quotes to use in your paper, but can usually be skipped. If you are still having trouble making sense of an article, you might want to visit the Academic Support Center for help, or make an appointment with a librarian to find something new. And for more information about research in different scholarly disciplines and the methods used, see our Research Methods Research Guide, which is linked below. If you have questions about anything covered in this video, please visit us at answers.sunywcc.edu to get help from me and the other librarians, or to browse the library FAQs for additional help. You can also call or text us when the library is open.